Lunch with Lucy. Did you know that we had 11 episodes and over 2,300 people who registered for our talk show in 2022? Super exciting and very, very proud of it. So in 2023, we are working very hard on putting together the episodes with great content. And meanwhile, please enjoy the highlights from 2022 Lunch with Lucy, and don't forget to subscribe to youtube.com/LucyEdwardsVHT, my YouTube channel. Have a great day. Cheers and see you soon.
Well, you know, I mean, I think that it's amazing that in 2022, we're still talking about agents executing on fundamentals of marketing, like professional photography, like video, like, the 3D walkthroughs, like the Matterport. I just don't understand why. And listen, we have a big company and we provide a lot of this stuff. But a lot of times the last link in the chain is the agent who has to decide whether or not, this home that they're selling for $400,000, which they're going to get paid about $10,000 gross on, whether they should invest $200 in a marketing program. To me, that's a no-brainer on an individual basis. And so I'm still surprised sometimes that we still see, really mediocre jobs. And the problem that you reference is the fact that in a hot market like this, a lot of times what you hear is, well, the home's going to sell in 3 days. Why should I spend all the time scheduling a video or a Matterport or something like that? It really doesn't need it. And my answer is, well, is that your marketing strategy, to go to a seller and say, I don't need to do really good marketing for you because your house is going to sell really quick? Like, why are they hiring you? Like, all you're doing is girding kind of this argument that agents don't do anything other than marketing is a really important thing that we do, as is staging, as are all the other things that we do for sellers. And we shouldn't cut back just because the market is hot. You still go through all the motion. You still go through all the fundamental practices of doing things the right way. Like, you wouldn't want your doctor to say, you look pretty healthy, so I'm not going to bother doing this test on you. Like, no, do the test. My insurance will cover it. Like, do the test. And so I feel like, you don't let down on that stuff, because, good marketing of a home, its primary purpose is to sell that home. Its secondary purpose is to send a message about that home to the buyer, which helps you with price and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then the third point is that it helps you. It's your statement about the professionalism that you bring to the industry. If you're not going to do a good job marketing the home, what you're saying is that, that's one of the big important parts of your job. And so I feel the same way about staging, for example, that every home should be staged, not necessarily by a professional stager decorator, but that the fundamentals of staging and cleaning and decluttering and depersonalizing, that every agent should know how to do that and should be able to execute on that, because that's what people pay us for. And they pay us a lot of money for, I don't care if it's $100,000 co-op, they're paying thousands of dollars to sell that co-op. Thousands of dollars is a lot of money to that person that owes a $100,000 co-op. Like, they deserve the best that we can put into it, right?
So I have an analogy, maybe, and I, just so the group is aware, all I've ever done is work with real estate professionals. It's all since 26th year of working just with realtors every day. I train them every day. So all I ever think about is real estate. And so if you look at the real estate transaction, I look at it like a stoplight. So you have green, yellow, and red. And the part of the real estate transaction that's really well versed on crypto, blockchain, or if you want to call it Web3, is the lending side. The lending side is evolving very, very rapidly. They have figured it out. They are investing tremendous amount of capital into it. So it won't be long that you can pay off your mortgage in crypto. You'll be able to borrow against crypto. You can already do it now, but you'll be able to do it in a very traditional way. So that part of it is very, very interesting. And it's ironic because crypto, if you look at it on a macro level, it poses the biggest threat to lending and third-party mediators of money. And I always think of my grandmother was devoutly Christian. She'd always say that money lenders should be cast from the marketplace. But they always kind of find their way into the marketplace because they're usually some of the smartest groups and have the best backing. And they also do a really good job with political capital on DC, Washington, and Capitol Hill and within state legislatures. So the lending part of it is kind of the green light. The yellow light, I think that it's a little bit slower, but it is evolving. To Ryan's point, is title and escrow. I think the title and escrow will look at blockchain. I think they will have compression on margins of title and escrow with blockchain. But I read a stat recently, less than 20% of your title and escrow fees actually go to the underwriter. The other 80% is to push the paper or to manage the file. And I think the blockchain will put pressure on that because it will reduce headcount, reduce manual labor on the file. And I think from a homeowner's perspective, you could see title and escrow fees lowered. And I also think from a title and escrow perspective, I think they could save money by having less fingers in the file. And then if we look at the stoplight analogy, green is lending, yellow is title and escrow, but they're evolving quickly. The red part of that stoplight is municipalities. You know, wet ink, paper. State of Kentucky is a good example where you're at, Lucy. They are crypto challenged. They're crypto challenged learning. They love to have municipalities and local governments involved in the real estate transaction. You know, I think there are over 8,000 houses in New Orleans right now, but there's still no clear ownership because of Katrina, and the title and the deeds are flooded. And the fact that we keep title and deed and record keeping and physical locations is a little Byzantine in my perspective, especially considering that as soon as it goes to the title clerk, the courthouse, it goes on to public records, and every company in America takes that file and shares it, sells it. So it is ironic that we put it on paper, file it, store it, and then put it back digitally for the whole world to actually use. So I think the blockchain will have tremendous impact there. I think that group will be slow to evolve. It's very fragmented. You're looking at county by county, state by state. If you look at Miami, they're very crypto friendly, but a lot of the FAR rules around real estate are still state mandated. So even Miami, as evolved as it tries to be, still is at the mercy of the state legislature as well as FAR, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the municipalities will be the slowest to evolve, but you know, that's okay.
Again, I think that goes back to consistency. So, you know, I say if you're going to post 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and maybe you're always posting at 9 a.m. There are some best practices you can look at for channels, and it's always changing of when you should be posting. But really, it's when your audience is on there, right? And so, again, it's different per channel. For Facebook, across the board, typically evening tends to be the best. 9 a.m., you know, morning is another good time, but you want to think about your audience, right? So most people that I'm trying to reach, at least right now, they put their kids to bed. They are on their phones in the evening, right? On Facebook. LinkedIn tends to be more professional. So they're typically on there more like Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So you can think of the audience that you are trying to reach and their lifestyle. When I used to work for Realtor Association, we were playing around with times to post and email open rates. And we found, and at the time, Saturday is like not usually, you know, if you're just looking at best practices for social media, a good time. But back then, open houses were still a big thing. And so Saturday mornings were our best time for open rates because realtors were at an open house waiting for people to show up, and they were opening those emails. So sometimes it takes a little bit of thinking about your audience and some testing. But the other thing you can do, and these are typically free within the platforms, is look at when your audience is online. So if you have a Facebook business page, if you're on Instagram, go and look at those metrics, and it'll tell you the best days of the week and the best times as far as when your audience is online. And I really think, you know, if it's a good piece of content, it's going to get good engagement no matter when you post it, but you might as well take advantage of that and give yourself the extra help of posting during those peak times for your audience.
This is an example of what's called a homoglyph attack, which is where you take a domain name and you change something very, very minor so that when someone is in a rush and they're not being careful, they don't notice it. And so if you look at the top one is clearly cigarpage.com. And the one at the bottom looks a lot like cigar page, especially if you kind of back up, but you'll notice that the G is actually a Q. So if you look at the difference between a G and a Q, it's not very much, but the one on the bottom is a completely fake version of that cigar page. Now, The other thing you're going to notice is, well, hey, I see this little security lock to the left. Aren't I supposed to trust those? Well, the person who created this fake site can also buy a security certificate and make their fake page appear to be secure. So what they're doing is they're basically tricking you here and betting on the fact that you might not notice that the Q and G are actually different. So this is how detailed these attacks can be. It can really be this simple. And it might not be a big deal unless you're into cigars, if you get fall for this one. But let's say it's your bank. Let's say it's medical records. Let's say it's anything related to finance, your credit cards, your anything that's important that could cause a loss for you. This is something to be aware of and really pay attention to what you're clicking. A lot of times what you can also do is if you're really not sure and there's a link in an email, you can copy that link, like the actual URL of the link, and put it into like Microsoft Word or Notepad and see what the link actually says under it. If it just says like click here and you copy it and you put it into Notepad, it's going to show you what the actual URL or the website address is, and then you can see, oh, this is fake. It's not Chase's bank, it's Chase Bank or something. You get what I'm saying. So that's what I would recommend if there are links that don't have the address and just say like click here to reset your password. You really don't know where you're going, and if you're suspicious about it, one way to do that is to right click, say copy URL, and paste it into Notepad, and then you can examine it. Just like this.
And what happens if you do click on the link and then you realize that, oh my God, I should not have done that?
Well, if you click on the link, it doesn't necessarily mean that something immediately happens, but it could take you to like a login page where it's like, oh, please provide your, Office 365 login or something. And this is what we see a lot of business email compromise happen this way, because they'll send things that they try to make it appear it's from Microsoft. And you'll go there, and let's say you do actually give your office logins, then they can literally go and log into all of your corporate email or your Gmail or whatever it is, and they can make sites look exactly like the legitimate one. It's actually not that hard. So what they do is they'll say, well, let's figure out what this company uses for their email server, which is again maybe 15 minutes of research. They'll mimic that page, and then they'll target everyone in the company and say, well, there's 80 people in the company, or let's say there's 100. Let's say one of them clicks through and gives us their credentials. Great, we got one. And once they're in, then they can basically act as if they're that person. And so a lot of times what they'll do is they'll focus on, CFOs or someone in accounting who has the ability to send wires and say, oh, I want a wire sent to this bank for this. And, they'll try to find someone with enough authority to execute some sort of theft, or they'll sit in there for months potentially and learn who people are, learn how they speak, and then launch an attack that's a lot more convincing. So sometimes these attacks are not instant. It can take a while for them to pan out. So again, this all just kind of points to the idea that you really have to be careful what you're clicking and where you're going.
What do you think is number one benefit that National Association of Realtors is offering to agents and to realtors?
Well, we have almost 1.6 million members. We are the largest trade association in the world. And while we're out listing and selling real estate, we have a group of people that are our lobbyists who are on Capitol Hill almost daily, that work 24/7 to make sure we have what we need and that homeowners have what they need, and anyone who owns even commercial property, because we also, work with them as well. For any of you who received the PPP, the Payment Protection Plan, during the pandemic, that was the first time in the history of our country that independent contractors were a part of a stimulus program. And you can thank the National Association of Realtors for that, because without them, that never would have happened. We are advocating, of course, right now for our inventory supply issue. We are working with zoning reform, money for new construction, expanding financing options, how to repurpose retail and commercial space for housing, tax incentives to spur investment and convert unused space. We're working with the Biden administration and Congress and our industry partners on solutions to increase homeownership opportunities in our country. And over the past year, the Biden administration, we've worked with them on a comprehensive policy proposal and a building consensus, because action is obviously needed. And I will also let you know that the White House included a historic funding request for affordable housing in the fiscal year 2023 budget, and that was released in March. So we all believe that the dream of home ownership should be for everyone, and I sure don't want to see us become a country of renters.
Process. So if I'm struggling in my business and I want to grow my business, or if I'm finding it difficult to engage with people in certain ways, or I'm just not doing as well this year as I may have done last year, you go to a coaching program, and that coaching program is going to give you a lot of things that you should be doing. And part of the issue that comes up in this is, great, so you start doing those things. But what happens when you do those things? You get busy, right? I mean, you get more business. Business comes in, you start doing better, things go great. But what is the first thing you stop doing when things start getting busy? That stuff. You stop taking the pill. So as soon as you stop taking the pill, guess what? Business then drops down again. It goes by the wayside, forcing the dependency back to the coach again for more scripts, more to-dos, more stuff. So what we found and what we believe in wholeheartedly is the idea that what we call living in your good sphere is living in a space and a place in which you have small set, simple things that you do every single day that have the highest income producing return on that time. That through doing those actions in a very small scaled way, we really believe that you can change behaviorally, understanding why that process happens. And in addition, cut down on the freneticness that comes in that wave of like, I get overwhelmed, I get really busy, I stop doing things that are good for me. Business slows down, pipeline dries up, I get super anxious, I start pumping out a bunch of things and start spamming everybody. So Lucy, our job is to sort of help shrink the overwhelmed, because if you think about the natural process of what happens in coaching, at its core, real estate agents operate right at the intersection of two common reoccurring thoughts, right? The first is, I'm not doing enough. It's the most common reoccurring behavioral thought that an agent has, I'm not doing enough. Followed then by the second most reoccurring common thought is, I'm not enough. Why? Because real estate is built on comparison thinking. What did I do last year? How do I repeat that? What is that person? That person just sent this mailer. How do I send that? This team over here did this. What are they doing? How are they getting? What do I do to match that? So when you take I'm not enough and I'm not doing enough, and you overlap those like a Venn diagram, right in that center is where an agent lives, and that's called overwhelmed. And when you're living in that state of overwhelmed, going to someone that's going to say, hey, I'm going to help you improve your business by giving you a bunch of stuff to do, doesn't reduce the feeling of overwhelmed. It just makes more and more overwhelmed. So most of you hearing the sound of my voice have consistently had this experience, right? Of which you've gone to some coaching program or a seminar, and what? You take a dozen photos of the things that you see on the screen and you're like, I'm going to do this when I get back. And yet, have you ever done it? I'll wait. No one does that. That's not a thing. Why? Because again, it's great in theory, but then life happens. So what we do is we help sort of reset the process a little bit and help you understand that there's really very few things that you need to be doing. And actually by recognizing when you're not doing those, that's how you know you're getting outside of your good sphere and you're kind of drifting away from the core things and components that keep you doing things well. When you look at how you generate healthy relationships with people, even when we say we call and reach out to somebody, we always, as an agent, feel that I have to have something for them. I have to have value for them. I have to have a reason. Otherwise, it's going to seem weird. Well, last time I checked, one human being asking another human being, are you okay? How are things going? How are you? What's new in the world? Does not immediately elicit the response of, I hate you, never reach out to me again. That's not a common thing amongst human beings. Empathy is usually matched with appreciation and kindness because human beings want one of four things, which is to be loved, appreciated, heard, and understood. What they don't want is your newsletter. So what we need to think about is, and I know every time I say this, I told you I'm going to get hate mail. There's always somebody that's like, oh, my clients love my newsletter. Yes, I'm sure there, again, 4,000 people that you send it to, there's probably 10 or 12, maybe even 50 that are like, that's great, I love this. But what happened to the other 3,950 people, right? We have this thing that we do that Lucy, it's called permanent application, which means that because one person said they liked it, we automatically assume everybody must like it, right? So it's really more about thinking about when we talk about how do we develop healthy relationships, Lucy, it's asking yourself, am I really engaging in a relationship, or am I coming from this place of fear and insecurity and anxiety where I'm just like, I need to put stuff out because that stuff that I'm putting out there is going to make people know that I'm confirmed in what I'm doing? Because fundamentally, real estate as a business model is very, very hard. It's very difficult, not just because of it being an independent function without healthcare or consistent paycheck. It's very difficult because it's already a position, a role, a job that has tremendous amounts of stigma around it, right? From the outside world looking in. And, you know, when you believe that what you do for a living, right, is sort of viewed as something kind of it's very hard to get up in the morning and not feel like I have to then convince everybody that I'm not that. When the reality of it is that at our core, all we should be doing is nurturing people to help them understand that we're guides in a process and that we can be there as a support role for them in that guiding of how they can achieve what they want, because it's a we thing, not a I'm the subject matter expert. And
again, just to highlight what I was just saying here, you could think of the digital twin as the core, the geospatial and contextual data, and a 3D tour is derived from that. But there are other, because of all of that rich data that exists in the digital twin, there are other things that you can extract from that 3D digital twin. So photos, floor plans, videos, and even data and insights about that particular property. And so I'm going to go to a particular space here and just kind of show this and demonstrate this in this particular space. And so this is this is the 3D digital twin as I should say the 3D immersive tour that I'm viewing here. And you can see as I move from space to space here, I'm really getting a deep understanding of what this space is. But this is really more than just 360 photos. This is all of the geospatial data of that particular space. And so one of the things that I can do as I look at the space is really understand, all right, well, what is the size of this particular couch here? And is that something that if I'm going to purchase this place, something that I'm going to replace? Or is that something that, and if I am, what is the size of that, replacement furniture going to be? And so I think, showing the kind of the measurements that are accessible through the 3D immersive tour show that this is not just a 360 photo here. I mean, this is really geospatial data that exists in this space. But beyond that, there's all these other assets that can be derived from that 3D space. So I mentioned photos. So within that space, there's essentially all of these photos and different views can be derived from that particular space. You can access the floor plan through that space that can just be simply downloaded here. And so these are all of the things that, and all of, when you capture a property as a digital twin, these are all of the assets and all of the data that can be extracted from that digital twin that ultimately supports in the marketing and the, displaying the kind of the story or the essence of a particular space.
No, that's amazing. And you showed before that you can actually take the measurements from that couch and put it in a different room and assume that it fits or it doesn't, right?
That is correct. And so maybe I'll just go back to that particular feature here. So if I'm walking through this particular space here, I can go in and go to any area of this space here. And let's say I want to understand here, there's a TV. Well, what is the size of that TV And is that TV going to be big enough for my TV, or do I need to purchase a new TV, for example? Or I can go to this room view here, and this is a version of a floor plan view, and really understand, all right, what is the size of this carpet here? And is this carpet something that I need to purchase, or I'm going to need to, maybe ask the seller in this particular case to keep. And so these are just ways in which buyers can engage in a property in a more meaningful way, through that digital twin that doesn't exist with typical kind of virtual tour solutions, that exist outside of Matterport. For sure. And maybe that goes towards like, well, what is the benefit for the buyer here? And the benefits are real. So I would classify them as two ways. One is, what is the initial impression of a particular property, and then one supporting in getting to close. So on that initial impression, we see data through our portal partners like Zillow, Redfin, et cetera, that listings that have a 3D tour get on average 68% more views than listings that don't. And so in terms of widening the funnel and having more buyers engage in a particular property, having a 3D tour is a very effective way to do that. And in addition, we did a survey with a third-party research firm, so arm's length, to really understand how are consumers viewing the value of Matterport and trying to lean in those areas. But the results of the survey were really interesting. And one stat in particular, 61% of buyers said they wished a listing had a 3D tour. And then, to your point, Lucy, on, looking at properties and even potentially purchasing properties without even showing up on site, 46% of millennial buyers, so these are usually first-time buyers, said that they'd be confident in making an offer on a home that they only toured virtually. And so having that Matterport, really broadens the funnel of potential buyers. And then the second piece, and I think this is important, something that certainly would have helped me when I purchased my property. For most buyers, I mean, all buyers really, purchasing a home is a very considered decision. And it's something that you don't do in isolation. And, ideally, you're not doing on a whim. And so, when I purchased my home, I wanted to visit that property several times to get confident that I was making the right decision, and actually have family members and stakeholders in my life also visit that property to get their opinions. But that's very disruptive to the selling agent. It's disruptive to the seller to allow me into the property all of those times. Having a 3D digital twin essentially allows me to visit that property unlimited times. It allows me to share that property with all of the stakeholders in my life, so that I'm getting their opinions, and I don't need to engage in the seller or the seller's agent to then access the property to do that. And so, so not only does it help at kind of broadening the funnel, if you will, on potential buyers, but it makes, once buyers are ready to commit to a particular property, it makes them more serious about their property and gives you as an agent the ability to generate more serious buyers, that ultimately creates more offers that support in generating a higher price for the seller.
One of the things that I like to tell people is always be your own brand ambassador. I think it's important for you to tell your own story and to, like I said, just be authentic to who you are. Early in my career, I looked at others who were successful, and I think that's always great to have mentors and people to look up to, and everyone does their job differently. So what I did, and I found that as I was looking at other mentors and doing what they were doing, success wasn't coming to me. And it's because it wasn't authentic to me. So I turned my brand to what I wanted it to be. And there it went. A lot of people don't believe that I do my own social media, and I do. So I'm putting it out there that I do it all myself. And I think it's just a variety because it is authentic to me and to the day. So I try to make it relevant to what I'm doing that day. And if we're, at a client's house, or the weather, what's happening outside, and I do put a lot of thought into each home. I feel that I look at how the people currently live in the home. And I, again, try to tell a story around that. So for example, I was selling a co-op in the Gold Coast here in Chicago. And co-ops are a very different type of property. And a lot of people don't understand what a co-op is. So again, with just pictures and description, it's hard to tell the story of that property. So what we did was we created this video about the services that the co-op offers. It was a dog-friendly building. It was a very exclusive building. It's close to Michigan Avenue with shopping. So what the video was about, I borrowed somebody's Bentley. So we pulled up in a Bentley just to show, you know, what a beautiful neighborhood this was. My dog jumped out of the Bentley, so just to show, and walked into the building, and would show that it was a dog-friendly building. The door staff was amazing. You know, they're opening up doors for us. So it just showed people that it's a full service, 24-hour door staff. I personally was carrying a Chanel bag that was empty, by the way. You know, but showed that, you know, I'm close to Michigan Avenue. I've got all the stores right here. And then we walked through the home. We had a grand piano in the living room showing that the space is there. And again, it's really, you know, I think being in real estate is also being a marketer, right? So I put all of those components together. We created this beautiful video of this co-op, and it just, people knew more about the co-op through, I didn't even have to say a word. They just watched and listened. So it was beautifully done.
See the future of the real estate professional. I'm very bullish on the future of the real estate professional. I think the disruptors and the discounters have done their best to try and disintermediate the residential real estate agent, but consumers or our clients have voted with their checkbooks over time that they value advice over discount, they value advice over disruption. And so I think that the good real estate professionals will become great. In these adverse times, those with the experience that dates back to the Great Depression, that dates back to parts of late 2018, and then again, you know, just recently with COVID, and then these market meltdowns, the really, really good professionals will become great. They will take share, and it's because they will meet their clients where their clients are. And that's not a geographical location. That's an emotional and mental location where people can emulate with their clients exactly what they're going through. Yeah, one of the sort of inertias that I've seen in the market in the last 18 to 20 months is we are hearing a lot more of the voice of a consumer in our discussions about what technology do we need, what services should we be providing, and things like that. And when you think about technology in your practice, in your business, you might say, whoa, I have way too much technology. I don't need any more technology. I'm doing just fine. But in reality, you need to put yourself in the consumer or the client's shoes. Your client does not benchmark your real estate services against someone else's real estate services. They benchmark your real estate services against every other experience they have in their life. Whether it's getting an Uber, whether it's buying an airline ticket, whether it's going to the doctor's office and having to fill out that clipboard of information that they've had on you for years and they won't give to you in a filled out form. You know, it's like, give them the experience that they want. So when you're doing, when we're listing properties, I mean, Matterport is a great example. Put your best foot forward. Don't take the pictures yourself from your iPhone. What that really says to a consumer is, I don't really care that much. I think it's going to sell and I'll just do it the easy way. Do it, go the extra mile, do it to a quality standard of excellence. You know, do it to a standard of excellence, and the consumer will notice, the next door neighbor will notice. You know, when they see the house online, they say, wow, that's the way I want my property marketed. So do it in a way that it meets and exceeds the consumer's expectations.
And that is so true. The strategic partnerships between residential and commercial are essential for anybody that is really in trying to improve their commercial and or residential practice. You know, we at RAND promote a lot of referrals. Why? Folks stay in their lane. They do what they're best at doing. And, you know, there's an old saying, it's better to get 25% of something than wait for 100% of nothing. I would be an absolute failure trying to dip my toe into the residential world. And I've done very well referring residential properties to the appropriate residential agents in the area. I will say this, when you look at office and retail, it will always be commercial, but it will be comprised of many factors and many different disciplines. So in the office building, we're going to see office buildings that are going to house not only residential in addition to the office space, but it may in fact be condotel, a hotel or condo kind of setup where people are living closer to where they may want to work. And so we're going to see a lot of repurposing of real estate. And I think that's the exciting part of it. We're seeing a lot of the existing real estate, whether they are retail locations or office buildings, that are being repurposed. And they're being repurposed in a really dynamic way that's meeting what the new normal is. So in office buildings, we're going to see condotels, we're going to see the kind of exciting live, work, play kind of experience that people will participate in. And in our retail locations, that mega mall is going to be something of a real experience. It's going to have warehousing, it's going to have exhibition space, it's going to have a whole host of experiential type of business coming in there. And you need to do that because we are no longer in a static zoning society where we say single family residential here, multifamily residential here, commercial here. I think we're all going to go back to see that sort of New York City urban design where a lot of things come together as one. And we're starting to see that because we've seen a complete sea change in how business and residential marry each other in the communities that we all live in.